A group of former Countrywide customers saying they were scammed, hit with all sorts of fees when the company foreclosed on their homes. And these are fees they say the nation's largest mortgage company simply dreamed up.
Yeah, the class action suit, now more important than ever, as the number of Countrywide foreclosures has doubled in just the last year. Jeffrey Norton is the attorney representing those customers. So, Jeffrey, what is the take? I'm going to ask you to play devil's advocate, which lawyers often do. Sure. What is the take of Countrywide? What's their best argument right now?
Frankly, I don't really see their best argument.
You're not willing to play the game. All right, they have no argument.
Well, I mean, they could.
What are they saying, though? They have lawyers defending themselves. What are their lawyers saying?
Well, we have a breach of contract action. So, obviously, they're going to say that any misconduct that we're alleging is going to be as a result of low-level or administrative individuals that can't be imputed to the bank. However, this is a breach of contract case. It's not a fraud case. It's not has no mental state required to prove our claim. So,
and what was the breach?
The breach is that every mortgage has a provision that says that the lender shall be paid back for its costs and expenses associated with enforcement. So what happens in practice, though, is when enforcement proceedings up to foreclosures are actually undertaken, the banks pad the fees and expenses. They add appraisal costs and filing fees and legal fees, and clerk filing fees, and a whole list, a whole menu of charges and expenses that are then passed along to the borrower, the borrower in foreclosure. And it turns out through our investigation that it's a common practice.
To just sort of tack things on and hope that the customer doesn't ask questions.
They're unverifiable.
Give me your worst case that you looked at. What were the worst violations where this amount of money was added on with outrageous claims of, faxing fee? I'm actually thinking like when you get lawyers' bills sometimes, I charge you $15 for having sent a fax through or something.
Lawyers don't do that.
Never. But tell us your worst case.
Well, let me tell you, even the plaintiff's case you could look at. Mr. O'Gara, whose mother passed away. She lived in Florida, and she missed a couple payments while she was ill. Then she passed away. Mr. O'Gara called Countrywide to get the mortgage back in good standing, and they said, okay, just pay all. We'll send you a list of fees and expenses. It came out to like $1,100, and then he thought that was awful high for only the couple weeks it had been in enforcement proceedings. So we looked into it and found out that actually only $200 were actually incurred by Countrywide during that time, just actually calling the law firm to say this loan needs to be looked at, this mortgage needs to be looked at. They just charged $200 at that point, and that's all that had been done. There had been no
one phone call, $200.
That's right. There had been no filings, even though he was charged for filing fees and clerk fees and late fees and all these things. None of those had actually been incurred.
But since there's so many individual stories, each one of which has its own different permutations, how can you make a class action and throw hundreds of customers into the same basket?
Well, it's easy. I mean, basically the claim would be anyone who paid more than they should have under the mortgage, under
but
fees
isn't
and expenses
each
that weren't
individual case different?
Sure, but in any case, in any class action, individuals may have different levels of damage.
Well, if I'm making candy bars and there's poison in the candy bar and you do a class action, it's because everybody ate the poison. In this case, every case is a little different. Sometimes it was a phone call, sometimes it was a Xerox, whatever.
But that's not true. Did someone eat that candy bar and just nothing happened to them? They just had to go to the doctor and medical monitoring? Did someone eat that candy bar and die? Did someone have brain damage? There's sort of a whole level of things which make class actions on that basis different. On an individual basis, that's why they're subjected to a claims process. Every claim can be evaluated. As long as you establish liability, that everyone has experienced the same breach. Everyone in my class experienced the same breach. Everyone paid more than they should have. Now you have to go back and look at every single one to see how much more each individual paid.
And by the way, we want to let people know that we did contact Countrywide for a comment on this. They never emailed us back. That doesn't mean that they're not going to, so we welcome any input that Countrywide has. But what is the amount that you're asking?
Well, right now we have no idea. There are millions of foreclosures in this foreclosure crisis going on, a mortgage crisis.
So this could snowball, and people could be watching right now saying, hey, that happened to me too, I'm going to call this guy.
Exactly. And we don't just have a case against Countrywide. This is one of a collection of cases that we have against many lenders, because this is a common practice. This isn't an exception. This is the rule. This seems to be you could scrutinize probably most mortgages and find that there's some level of inflation in each enforcement.
Now, there are a lot of skeptics out there that look at folks in your profession and say, what a class action suit is, 1 million people get $100 and 100 lawyers get $1 million. What is your cut of the action? What amount of money, percentage-wise, will the lawyers get from this class action?
Well, we just filed this case, so we can't say that. And we have no idea. I mean, in class actions, that's one thing that's a little different. Judges decide how much fees you're going to get. You apply for fees. You apply to the court for fees. And if you get a great settlement or a great judgment for the class, the court has to decide what work you've done that entitles you to what level of damages. So
10, 20, 30%?
It really depends on the size of the judgment or settlement. It really depends on how much work's been put into it. So certainly if some case has been litigated for years and years and years, and the lawyers have put millions of their own dollars into it, then it could go up to 25%. But if it's something that gets filed and settled right away, then you wouldn't see those kind of numbers.
Jeffrey Norton, thank you very much.
Thanks
Keep
a lot.
us posted on the case.
Thank you for having me.
And Countrywide, we